"Dad, Megan's going to stay at your house for a while," said my son Joshua, handing my house keys to his wife. Everyone laughed as she took them, like it was the most natural thing in the world. My heart raced. I stood there in my own living room, watching my son give away my home as if it were his. But what he didn't know was that I hadn't lived there for 3 months. And when he found out where I was really living, his world completely fell apart. Before we go on, please subscribe to the channel and comment below with what time it is where you are right now. My name is Ray Thompson. I'm 68 years old. And my whole life, I've been the dad who always said yes, the one who worked 2 jobs so my son Joshua could study, the one who stayed up when he had a fever, the one who sold my tools to pay for his college, the one who never complained when he decided to bring friends home without warning. I was that father who believed sacrifice was love, until I discovered that to them I was just a convenient burden. I've lived in Boston for over 35 years. I arrived here with a duffel bag and big dreams, working as a mechanic fixing cars for wealthy families. I repaired, welded, handled overhauls for others while raising my son alone. On weekends, I worked at a garage to earn those extra dollars that were always needed. Joshua was my world, my reason for being, my greatest project. I never imagined that one day he would see me as an obstacle to his happiness. When he was 16, I got a better job as a shop foreman. We could finally breathe a little, but I remained the same, always available, always willing, always invisible to my own needs. If Joshua wanted burgers, I bought burgers, even if I preferred to cook. If he needed money to go out, I gave him every last dollar from my wallet. I saw each sacrifice as an investment in our future together. I vividly remember when I turned 52. I had worked a 14-hour shift. I came home expecting at least a hug or congratulations. Joshua was in his room playing video games. He didn't even come out to greet me. That night, I cried silently while eating a slice of pie I had bought for myself at the bakery. But I convinced myself that kids aren't obligated to remember these things, that I was overreacting, that his happiness was more important than my feelings. For years, I normalized this dynamic. I gave, he received, I sacrificed, he enjoyed. When he graduated from college, paid entirely by me. He didn't even invite me to the ceremony. He said it was boring and he'd rather celebrate with his friends. Once again, I swallowed the disappointment and focused on feeling proud of his achievements. I never questioned why my presence seemed embarrassing to him. At 26, Joshua met Megan at work. She was 24, brunette, with those sharp blue eyes that know exactly what they want and how to get it. From the first day I saw her, something in my gut twisted. It wasn't protective paternal instinct. It was something deeper, recognition. I recognized in her that calculating coldness I'd seen in the eyes of people who know how to identify who they can manipulate. The first time she came to the house, she examined every corner with those blue eyes as if she were taking inventory. She touched my things, asked about prices, made comments about how spacious the house was. I had bought that house with years of hard work, paying mortgage by mortgage, turning a dream into reality, nail by nail. But the way Megan looked made me feel like an intruder in my own home. "Mr. Thompson," she'd say with that smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How lucky you are to have such a big house all to yourself." That phrase stuck because she repeated it every time she came, like water drops that wear away stone. Those words began echoing in my head. Joshua seemed hypnotized by her, defending her in every conversation, and slowly starting to see me through her eyes. I was no longer his sacrificing father. Now I was the old man living alone in a house that was too big. But this didn't start with Megan. My whole life I'd always been the second option. The one who waited. The one who settled for crumbs of attention that others let fall. Since I was a boy, I learned that my value depended on how much I could give without receiving anything in return. My own father used to tell me, "Ray, the men in our family were born to provide, not to complain." When I turned 16 while other boys celebrated their birthdays with parties and presents, I worked that day hauling parts to help with family expenses. Nobody congratulated me. Nobody hugged me. Nobody told me I was special. When Joshua was born, when I was 23, his mother vanished like mist as soon as she saw I couldn't afford to support a big family. I was completely alone with no family to support me. No money. Nothing but an iron determination to raise my baby. I worked until the last day before he was born, lifting engines with my back aching because I had no other choice. The other mechanics looked at me with pity, but nobody offered real help. During Joshua's first years, I worked 3 different jobs: mornings at the auto shop, afternoons as a night watchman at a warehouse, and evenings delivering parts. I'd come home at midnight with grease-stained hands and sore feet, but always with a smile for my son. He was the only thing that kept me standing when everything seemed impossible. I remember a Thanksgiving when Joshua was 8. I had saved for months to buy him a skateboard he'd seen in a store. I worked extra shifts, ate sandwiches for weeks, sold my only good jacket. On Thanksgiving morning, I saw his little face light up when he saw that blue skateboard next to the pumpkin pie we'd made from scratch. "It's the coolest in the world, Dad," he told me, hugging me. In that moment, I felt everything was worth it, that every sacrifice made sense. But as Joshua grew, those moments of gratitude became rarer. At 11, he no longer liked the presents I could afford. He wanted the expensive sneakers his classmates wore, the newest gaming console, the designer clothes. I worked more hours, made more sacrifices, but it was never enough. There was always something better he deserved that I couldn't give. In his teenage years, things got worse. He was embarrassed by my work, my plain clothes, our modest apartment. When his friends came over, I'd lock myself in my room so as not to bother him with my presence. Once I heard him tell a friend, "My dad is just a mechanic, but when I grow up, I'll get a good job and we'll have a better house." It didn't hurt that he acknowledged my work. What hurt was the just he put before it. During his college years, I worked to exhaustion to pay for everything: tuition, books, rent near campus, food, money for going out. I lived on $40 a week for my personal expenses. But he had everything he needed and more. When he graduated with honors, I thought we'd finally have that close relationship I'd always dreamed of. But he already had other plans, other interests, another life where I didn't fit. He got a good job at an advertising firm. He started making more money than I'd seen in my entire life. For a moment, I thought now he could help me a little, that we could be a team. But when I mentioned that the house's furnace had broken, and I needed $500 to repair it, he told me, "Dad, I'm an adult now. I have my own expenses. You've always managed on your own." Those words were like a punch. After years of giving everything, of sacrificing my dreams, my comfort, my future for him, now that he could give back even just a little, I was no longer his responsibility. But when he needed something, when he wanted to impress a girlfriend, or when he was unemployed for a few months, then he'd run to my door with that charming smile that always melted my heart. And I always said yes, always opened my wallet, always found a way to help him because he was my son, because I loved him more than my own life, because I believed that someday he would value everything I had done for him. Every time he told me, "Thanks, Dad, you're the best," I felt that a lifetime of sacrifices was worth it for those 4 words. But the visits became more spaced out, the calls shorter, the I love yous more mechanical. I continued being useful when he needed me, but invisible when he didn't. On his birthdays, I always prepared his favorite meal, bought thoughtful gifts with love. On mine, if I was lucky, I'd get a 10-minute call where he'd ask, "How are you?" without really listening to the answer. Everything changed when Megan officially entered our lives. At first, she seemed like the perfect daughter-in-law. She smiled, hugged me, called me Dad with that sweet voice I now know was completely fake. The first months were a honeymoon where she tried hard to please me, but I could feel something strange beneath all that forced kindness. The first warning sign came on a Friday morning. I was at the grocery store doing the weekly shopping when I got a call from my neighbor. "Tom, Ray, there's a brunette woman in your house. Says she's Joshua's girlfriend, and that he gave her the keys to wait inside." My heart raced. Joshua hadn't told me anything about giving Megan the keys, much less about letting her in when I wasn't there. I rushed home and found her sitting on my couch, eating from my fridge, and watching TV like she owned the place. "Hi, Dad. Joshua told me I could wait for him here. I hope you don't mind," she told me without getting up, without showing any hint of shame for having invaded my private space without my permission. "Joshua gave you the keys?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Yes. He told me his house was my house, that I could come whenever I wanted. Don't you think that's romantic?" That phrase chilled my blood. My house wasn't our house. It was my house, bought with my work, paid for with my sacrifices. But when I talked to Joshua that night, he told me I was overreacting, that Megan had just wanted to do something nice by waiting for him. After that, unannounced visits became constant. Megan would show up whenever she felt like it, always with some perfect excuse. She'd forgotten something. She wanted to cook a surprise for Joshua. She needed to use my Wi-Fi because hers wasn't working. Every time I came home from work, I'd find her there, settled in my living room like it was her territory. It started with small things that seemed innocent. She'd take food from my fridge to cook something special for Joshua at his apartment. She used my cleaning supplies, my soap, my towels. "Oh, Dad, mine ran out and the store is closed. I'll replace everything tomorrow," she always said. But tomorrow never came, and I ended up buying again what she had taken. One afternoon, I came home early from work and found her going through my drawers. "Dad, you scared me," she said, laughing like nothing happened. "I was looking for something to wear. Joshua and I are going out and my clothes got soaked in the rain." She was wearing one of my favorite sweaters, a gray one I'd bought for a special occasion and had never worn. She'd put it on without asking, as if my clothes were also hers. "Megan, that sweater is very special to me," I said with a trembling voice. "Oh, don't be like that. I'm just borrowing it for tonight. Besides, it's too big on you. It fits me perfectly. Don't you think I look great?" She turned in front of the mirror like a model, enjoying my discomfort. That night, when she returned the sweater, it had a coffee stain that I could never remove. Things started disappearing, small at first. My favorite wrench set, a bracelet my father had given me, an expensive aftershave I'd bought as a birthday gift. When I asked Megan if she'd seen these things, she always had perfect answers. No, Dad. Maybe you put them somewhere else. Or are you sure you had them? Sometimes memory plays tricks on us. Joshua always defended her. Dad, Megan would never touch your things. You must have lost them and don't remember. He made me feel like a crazy old man imagining things. But I knew perfectly where I kept each of my treasures because they were very few and each had a special story. One day, while cleaning the house, I decided to thoroughly search every corner looking for my lost things. In the process, I discovered that Megan had been using my laptop. She'd left property listing pages open, looking for houses for sale in my neighborhood. But what disturbed me most was finding a folder where she'd saved information about my house. The exact square footage, year built, estimated value according to real estate sites. That night, I confronted Joshua. Your girlfriend is researching the price of my house. Why does she need that information? He got furious with me. You went through her things. Dad, that's an invasion of privacy. Megan was helping me with a work project. We had to research the local housing market. It was a lie. I knew it was a lie. But he believed her over me. The invasions became more audacious. She started receiving packages at my address. It's because they steal deliveries at my apartment. Dad, they're safer here. My house was becoming her personal storage. Then she started bringing her friends. She'd arrive with 3 or 4 women. They'd use my living room for their gatherings, eat my food, dirty my house, and leave without cleaning anything. Megan, you didn't consult me before bringing visitors, I said one afternoon after cleaning up the mess they'd left. Oh, Dad, I thought there was no problem. Joshua told me I could use the house when I needed. Another convenient lie she knew I couldn't verify, because Joshua was always at work when this happened. The last straw came when I discovered she'd rearranged my furniture. Do you like how it looks? I think the living room looks more modern this way. She told me when I came home from work and saw everything changed. My family photos had been moved to less visible places, and in their place, she'd put vases and decorations she'd brought. Megan, this is my house. You can't change things without asking me, I said more firmly than I'd shown before. Oh, but Dad, I just wanted to help. The house looked so outdated. I thought you'd like a change. Her tone was condescending, as if she were doing me a favor by updating my home. That night, I called Joshua desperately. Your girlfriend is acting like my house is hers. She moves furniture, brings people without telling me, takes my things. His response broke my heart. Dad, Megan is trying to help you. Maybe it's time you accept that you need help taking care of such a big house. Don't be mad at her for wanting to take care of you. Take care of me invading my privacy, appropriating my spaces, making me feel like a stranger in my own house. That was taking care of me, but Joshua had already chosen which side he was on, and it definitely wasn't mine. The final violation of my privacy came on a Wednesday afternoon I'll never forget. I'd taken half a day off work because I had a doctor's appointment. But I finished earlier than expected. When I got home, I heard voices in my bedroom. My bedroom. The only place in the whole house I considered truly private. My personal sanctuary, where I kept my most intimate memories. I went up the stairs with my heart pounding, and there was Megan and 2 of her friends going through my things like it was a flea market. They had all my drawers open, my photo albums spread on the bed, my personal letters in their hands. One of them was holding the journal I'd written during Joshua's early years, reading my most private thoughts aloud while they all laughed. "What are you doing in my bedroom?" I shouted with a fury I didn't know I had inside. Megan was startled but quickly recovered her composure with that fake smile I knew so well. "Oh, Dad, you scared us. We were looking for baby photos of Joshua to make a surprise album for our anniversary." "Bull. And that's why you're reading my personal journal. That's why you have all my letters spread on the bed," I said, trembling with rage. One of her friends, a redhead with an air of superiority, looked me up and down and said, "Sir, don't get so upset. We were just looking at some little photos," as if I were a madman overreacting about nothing. "Get out of my room right now!" I shouted, with a voice I didn't recognize as mine. "Everyone out of my house!" Megan looked at me with a coldness that chilled me to the bone. "Dad, there's no need to shout like that. We're family. Aren't we? Families share their things." Family, she called this total invasion of my privacy. Family. Her friends picked up their purses, laughing quietly, as if I were the afternoon's entertainment. "Okay. Megan, let's go. Your father-in-law seems a bit stressed," said one of them, with that condescension that made my blood boil. After they left, I stood in the middle of my ransacked bedroom, looking at the chaos they'd left. My journal was open to a page where I'd written about my fears when Joshua was a baby, my insecurities as a single father, my silent tears when Joshua was little, and I felt completely alone. They'd read my most vulnerable thoughts as if they were tabloid gossip. I checked everything meticulously and discovered things were missing. My silver pocket watch, inheritance from my father, a gold chain that had been my grandfather's, $300 in cash I kept in a tin for emergencies. When I texted Megan asking about these things, she responded, "I didn't see any of that." "Dad, are you sure you had them there that night?" When Joshua came home, I told him everything. I showed him the mess in my bedroom, explained about the stolen things, told him how violated I felt. His reaction destroyed me more than everything that had happened. "Dad, surely there's an explanation. Megan would never steal. Maybe your coworkers saw the things and put them somewhere else." My coworkers. Joshua. No one else has been in my bedroom for months. Your girlfriend and her friends were reading my journal like it was a book, but he'd already made his decision. "Dad, I think you're jealous because now you have to share my attention. Megan is trying to bond with you and you reject her. Jealous, defending my dignity, my privacy, my home." He called jealous. I felt like I'd been slapped. My own son was choosing to believe a woman he'd known for a year over the father who'd raised him alone his entire life. The next day, I decided to put new locks on my bedroom. When Megan found out, she made an epic drama. "Oh, Joshua, your dad is treating me like a thief. He put locks so I can't enter certain rooms." She managed to cry in front of him, playing the victim of my paranoia. "Dad, seriously, you put locks on your bedroom. What will Megan think? What will her family think when they find out you distrust her so much?" Joshua confronted me as if the opinion of strangers was more important than my peace in my own house. "Joshua, I found your girlfriend reading my intimate journal. Would you let me read her private things?" His answer left me breathless. "It's different, Dad. Megan is young. Maybe she didn't understand that was wrong. But closing the door in her face makes her feel rejected by your family. By my family, I was his family. I was the one who'd been there since the first day of his life. Megan was an intruder who'd come to destroy the relationship we'd built over years. But to Joshua, I was becoming the problem. The difficult father-in-law who wouldn't accept the perfect woman he'd chosen. Things got worse when Megan started calling my work. She told my boss she was worried about my erratic behavior and that maybe I needed professional help. My supervisor called me into the office and asked if everything was okay at home, if I needed time off to resolve family problems. The humiliation was total. There I was explaining to my boss that my daughter-in-law was making up stories about my mental health to make me look bad at work. It sounded crazy, even to my own ears. Mr. Thompson, maybe it would be good if you talked to someone. Stress can manifest in strange ways, my supervisor told me with that look of pity I knew so well. When I confronted Megan about the call to my work, she denied everything. Me. Why would I do something like that? Dad, it must be a misunderstanding. Maybe someone else called worried about you. But I'd seen the number on the office call log. It was her phone without a doubt. That night, I cried like I hadn't cried since Joshua was a child and got sick. But these weren't tears of parental worry. They were tears of total betrayal. My son had traded me for a woman who was systematically destroying my life, my reputation, my peace of mind. And he not only allowed it, but blamed me for resisting. The final straw came when I discovered Megan had made a copy of my will. She'd taken it from my personal safe and photocopied it. When I asked why, she told me. Joshua asked me to review it because he's worried about your financial future. He wanted to make sure you had everything in order. My financial future. It was my present that was in danger. My house, my peace, my relationship with my son. Everything was being destroyed by this woman who turned my own son into her accomplice. And the worst of all was that Joshua genuinely believed she was helping, that I was the villain in this story, who refused to accept the love they offered me. The final confrontation came in the form of a family dinner Megan organized at my house without consulting me. One Sunday afternoon, I came home from the hardware store and found my living room full of people. Megan, her parents, her brother, and of course, Joshua, all sitting as if they owned the place. My own table was set with my best dishes, the ones I saved for special occasions. And the aroma from my kitchen indicated they'd prepared food using all my ingredients. "Dad, how good that you arrived!" Megan shouted from my kitchen, as if I were the guest of honor in my own house. "We prepared a family dinner for you to get to know my parents better. Isn't that nice?" Her parents looked at me with those fake smiles I knew so well, evaluating me as if I were a stranger who'd interrupted their gathering. "Megan, nobody told me about this dinner. This is my house, and I decide when to receive visitors," I said, trying to stay calm in front of the strangers. Megan's mother, a tall woman with an air of importance, looked me up and down and said, "Oh, sir, but we're family. Megan told us you sometimes get confused with dates." "Don't worry, we understand that. I get confused with dates." What else had this manipulator told them about me? Megan's father, a man with a beard who thought himself very significant, stood up and extended his hand as if he were doing me a great favor. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Thompson. Megan has told us a lot about you. It's a pleasure to finally meet our daughter's father-in-law. Sit down, Dad. My in-laws wanted to get to know you better," said Joshua, pulling me to a chair at my own table. But it wasn't my usual place. They'd put me in the corner as if I were the unwelcome guest in my own home. Megan occupied the head of the table, the place where I always sat, directing the conversation like a perfect hostess during dinner, which they'd prepared with all my food without asking me. Megan's family didn't stop making comments about how big the house was for one person. "Don't you feel very lonely here, Mr. Thompson?" asked Megan's brother, a younger and equally scheming version. "It's a lot of space to keep clean." Haven't you thought about moving to something smaller? Why would I move from my house? I responded, feeling my blood boil. I've lived here for 18 years. I bought it with my work, paid for it with my effort. Megan's father exchanged a look with his wife before saying, "Of course, sir. But at our age, we need to be practical. Maintaining such a large property can be very stressful." At my age, I'm 68, not 90, I said, raising my voice. I don't need strangers telling me what to do with my house. Joshua put his hand on my arm with that expression of shame that broke my heart. Dad, please. They're just worried about you. Megan's mother leaned toward me with that condescending smile that wanted to be maternal. Mr. Thompson, we have experience with elderly people. My uncle went through the same thing, clinging to a house that was too big, resisting necessary changes. In the end, when he accepted moving to a smaller place, he was much happier. I'm not your uncle, and I'm not clinging to anything, I shouted, completely losing my patience. This is my house, and nobody is going to tell me what to do with it. The silence that followed was so tense it could be cut with a knife. Everyone looked at me as if I were a capricious old man throwing a tantrum for no reason. Megan broke the silence with that sweet voice she knew how to use when she wanted to manipulate the situation. Dad, nobody wants to take your house. We're just thinking about your well-being. Joshua and I have been talking, and we believe it would be good for you to have more company, not be so alone all the time. What exactly are you talking about? I asked, feeling a chill in my stomach that announced something terrible was coming. Joshua avoided my gaze while Megan continued with her perfectly rehearsed speech. Well, we thought we could move in here with you. That way, you wouldn't be alone and we could help you with the house expenses. The world came crashing down on me. These manipulators not only wanted my house, they wanted me to thank them for helping while they stripped me of my home. You move in here to my house? I asked, with a voice I no longer recognized as mine. Megan's family nodded as if it were the most natural idea in the world. Think about it. Dad, said Joshua, with that voice he used when he wanted to convince me of something. You wouldn't have to pay all the expenses alone anymore. Megan could help you with cleaning, with cooking. It would be like having the family you always wanted. As if my family hadn't been enough for him all these years. And where exactly would you live in my house? I asked, feeling my throat close. Megan smiled as if she had everything planned. Well, we'd take the master bedroom, which is bigger and has the ensuite bathroom. You could have the spare room, which is very cozy and gets lots of afternoon light. The spare room in my own house. They wanted me to move to the smaller room while they took my bedroom in my house, living off my work. The audacity was so great that for a moment I couldn't even speak. Are you insane? I finally managed to articulate. You think I'm going to give my house as a gift and become your live-in help? Megan's father cleared his throat as if he were about to make a very important speech. Mr. Thompson, I think you're misinterpreting the situation. Nobody is talking about giving anything. We're talking about a family arrangement beneficial to everyone. Especially beneficial to you, I responded, feeling my whole body tremble with rage. Megan's brother decided to give his opinion, too. Sir, don't be like that. My sister just wants to take care of you. You're not young enough anymore to live alone in such a big house. What would happen if you fell down the stairs? If you got sick and there was nobody to help? I've lived alone for years and haven't needed anyone's help, I shouted. And if I needed it, there are retirement communities and professional services. I don't need you to invade my house. Megan's mother sighed as if she were dealing with a difficult child. Oh, sir, Retirement communities are very expensive and very lonely. Wouldn't you prefer to stay with your family? My family is Joshua, not you. I finally exploded. You're the strangers who want to steal my house. Joshua stood up with that expression of frustration that hurt me more than all the insults in the world. That's enough. Dad, you're being rude to Megan's family. They're just trying to help you, and you treat them like enemies. Because that's what they are. I shouted at my son with a completely broken heart. They are enemies who want to take everything I built with my work. The moment came when Megan, with that arrogant confidence that characterized her, stood up from my chair at the head of my table and walked to the kitchen. She came back with something in her hand that made my blood freeze. A set of keys. My keys. The keys to my house that I had never given her. Well, Dad, she told me with that victorious smile that revealed her true intentions. I think it's time you knew that Joshua and I have made a decision. We're moving in here next month. She held the keys up like a trophy, as if they were hers by right. Where did you get those keys? I asked with a voice that barely came out of my throat. Joshua avoided my gaze while Megan enjoyed her moment of triumph. Joshua gave them to me a while ago when he saw you didn't understand, that you need help. We're adults. Dad, we don't need your permission to make family decisions. Family decisions in my house with my keys. I turned to Joshua with a mixture of disbelief and pain I'd never felt before. You gave the keys to my house without consulting me. My son, the boy I'd raised with so much love, looked at me as if I were an annoying stranger. Dad, we've already talked about this. Megan is right. You need help. You can't continue living alone in such a big house. It's dangerous for you. His voice sounded like a broken record, repeating exactly the words Megan had put in his head for months. Megan's family watched the spectacle as if they were watching a very entertaining show. The mother leaned toward her husband and whispered something that made them smile with satisfaction. They were enjoying watching how they destroyed me in my own house. Joshua, I said with a choked voice, I bought this house. I pay for it. I maintain it. What right do you have to give the keys to your girlfriend? Megan laughed with that sharp laugh she knew how to use when she wanted to make someone feel ridiculous. Oh, Dad, don't say girlfriend. We've been together for over a year. We're practically engaged. And engaged couples take care of their in-laws when they can no longer take care of themselves. I can take care of myself perfectly, I shouted with a strength I didn't know I had. I don't need any of you to take care of me. Megan's father exchanged another of those complicit looks with his wife before speaking with that condescending voice that made my blood boil. Mr. Thompson, we understand it's difficult to accept that we're not as independent as before, but denying reality won't change it. You need help, and we're here to give it. He spoke as if he were a doctor giving me a terminal diagnosis with that false compassion that hides cruelty. The only help I need is for you to leave my house, I shouted, pointing to the door. But Megan waved the keys in front of my face as if she were a small child throwing a tantrum. Dad, these keys are mine now, too. Joshua gave them to me because he trusts me to take care of his family. His family. Since when was I her family and not my own son's? I turned to Joshua, searching in his eyes for some trace of the boy I'd raised with so much love. Joshua, please tell me you don't agree with this. Tell me you won't let them kick me out of my own house. My son looked at me with that cold expression he'd learned from Megan. Dad, nobody is kicking you out. We're offering you help. Megan can cook, clean, take care of you. You won't have to worry about anything anymore. as if I were an invalid who needed a full-time caregiver. And in exchange for what I asked, feeling my throat close, "What do you want in exchange for this generous help?" Megan smiled as if she'd been waiting for that question all night. "We don't want anything, Dad. Just that you let us live here. Use the house. Make the necessary updates so it's more comfortable for everyone." Updates. What updates? Megan's brother decided to join the conversation with the enthusiasm of someone who had already planned everything. "Well, the living room needs a complete remodel, and the kitchen is very old-fashioned. We'd also need to update the bathrooms and change all this retro decor." Retro. He called the memories of my entire life retro. The photos of Joshua growing up. The furniture I'd bought one by one with so much effort. Every detail I'd chosen with love to create a home. Megan's mother nodded as if she were an interior design expert. "Yes, sir. The house has a lot of potential, but it needs a young, fresh touch. Megan has very good taste for these things. As if my taste, my life, my choices were worth absolutely nothing. As if I were a senile old man, incapable of having my own judgment. And with what money are you going to make all these updates?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Joshua avoided my gaze again, while Megan answered with that naturalness that chilled my soul. "Well, you have the savings from your retirement fund, and there's also the possibility of taking out a home equity line on the house. Since we're going to live here, we can take on those payments, a home equity line on my house. They wanted to put my property in debt to pay for their design dreams, and then take on the payments as if that gave them ownership rights. The manipulation was so perfect, so calculated that for a moment I was speechless. "You're out of your minds if you think I'm going to allow this," I said with a voice that came from the depths of my soul. Megan's father adjusted himself in his chair as if he were the family decision-maker. "Mr. Thompson, be reasonable. You're no longer able to take care of such a large property alone. Joshua and Megan are willing to help you, but they need you to cooperate. They can't take on everything if you oppose every decision. You're not the ones taking on. I'm the one taking on everything while you enjoy my house." Megan sighed, as if she were dealing with a very difficult child who didn't understand what was good for him. "Dad, I think you don't understand the situation. We've already made the decision. Joshua gave me the keys. My parents know the house. We have everything planned. You can do this the easy way, collaborating with us, or the hard way, fighting like a stubborn old man. But one way or another, we're moving in here next month." The silence that followed was deafening. There was the final threat wrapped in sweet words. Either I became their unpaid servant in my own house, or they'd make my life hell until they achieved their goal. And my own son was on their side, nodding as if all this were perfectly normal and fair. It was at that moment that something changed inside me. A strange calm invaded me, as if I'd made the most important decision of my life. I stood up from my chair slowly, looked at each of these manipulators who had invaded my home, and smiled for the first time all night. "How interesting," I said with a calm that caught them completely by surprise. "So, you have everything planned. The keys, the move, the updates, even the home equity line on my house." My voice sounded different, stronger, as if I'd found something I'd lost a long time ago. Megan looked at me with suspicion. She expected screams, tears, desperate pleas, but my tranquility was making her nervous. "Yes, Dad, it's all decided. We just need you to sign some papers for the line of credit and we can start with the renovations next month." Sign papers, I asked, maintaining that smile that seemed to be bothering everyone. To put my house in debt and pay for your whims. Joshua shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Something in my tone was telling him things weren't going as they'd planned. Dad, don't see it that way. It's an investment in the family. When the house is updated, it'll be worth much more. It's good for everyone. My poor son, so blind to this woman's manipulation that he genuinely believed he was doing me a favor. Oh, of course. An investment, I repeated, savoring each word. And when exactly were you planning to move into my house with my keys? Megan's family exchanged looks of triumph. They thought I was finally surrendering, that I was accepting their plan. Next Friday. Megan answered with that arrogant confidence that had tortured me for months. We already have everything packed. My parents are going to help us with the move. It's going to be a very special day for the whole family. How exciting, I exclaimed, with an enthusiasm that made them smile with satisfaction. Next Friday, around what time? Megan's mother leaned forward as if we were planning a party among friends. We thought we'd arrive around 10 in the morning. That way, we have the whole day to get settled. Megan already has a list of things that need to be moved to make room for her furniture. Her furniture in my house, displacing my memories, my history, my life. Perfect, I said, maintaining that smile that was starting to worry even Joshua. So, on Friday at 10 in the morning, you're going to arrive with your things at my house. You're going to use my keys to enter. And you're going to start your new life here. Exactly, Megan confirmed, shaking the keys like they were bells. See, it wasn't so hard for us to understand each other. Dad. Megan's father nodded with that masculine superiority that had made me sick all night. It's a pleasure to see you finally come to your senses. Mr. Thompson, you'll see this decision will be the best for everyone, as if he were the one making decisions about my life, my house, my future. Oh yes, I responded with that sweet voice I'd learned from Megan herself. It's going to be very interesting for everyone, especially when you arrive on Friday and discover one little thing you forgot to ask before making all these plans. The silence changed quality. It was no longer the tranquility of triumph, but the tension of uncertainty. Joshua looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen since he was a child, and knew he'd done something wrong, but didn't know exactly what. What do you mean, Dad? He asked with a voice that was starting to tremble. Megan had also lost her confident smile. Her blue eyes examined me as if she were trying to solve a puzzle she didn't understand. Well, my dear son, I said, savoring each word as if it were the most delicious dessert in the world. There's something you maybe should have asked before giving the keys to my house to your girlfriend. The pause I made was perfect, calculated to maximize their anxiety. What is it? Joshua insisted with an urgency that filled me with a satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. All the power had changed sides in those few seconds, and they could feel it. Well, that I haven't lived here for 3 months, I said, with the same naturalness with which one comments on the weather. So, when you arrive on Friday with the move, you're going to find a completely empty house that's no longer mine. The silence that followed was so deep you could hear a pin drop. The expressions of triumph turned into masks of total confusion. Joshua looked at me as if I'd started speaking a foreign language. What are you saying? Megan stammered with a voice that no longer sounded confident or controlled. Her keys had lost all power in an instant, becoming useless pieces of metal. I'm saying exactly what you heard, I responded, enjoying every second of their bewilderment. For 3 months, I haven't slept in this house. For 3 months, I haven't paid these bills. For 3 months. It's not my problem if the pipes burst or the roof leaks. That's impossible, Megan shouted, standing up from her chair with that fury that finally revealed her true nature. I've been coming here every week. I saw your things, your clothes, your photos. Her perfect composure had completely disappeared. Yes, you've been coming. But what you didn't know is that I'd left everything as it was so you'd continue believing I lived here. While you were planning to steal my house, I'd already moved to my new condo. The irony was so perfect it made me want to laugh. Megan's father stood up as if he were going to interrogate a suspect. And where exactly do you say you live now? His tone was no longer condescending. Now he sounded desperate to understand what had gone wrong in their perfect plan. In a lovely 2-bedroom condo in downtown Boston, completely paid for with the money I got when I sold this house 3 months ago, I said, enjoying how their jaws dropped with each word. You sold the house, Joshua shouted, with a voice that cracked like when he was a teenager. What do you mean you sold the house, his perfect world, where he'd inherit the property and live happily with his manipulative wife, had just completely collapsed? Very easy. My dear son, I hired a realtor, found a buyer who paid cash, signed the papers, received my check, and moved to my new home. All very legal, all very simple, all very mine. My voice sounded stronger with each phrase. Megan's mother had turned pale as a ghost. But how could you sell without us knowing, as if I needed their permission to dispose of my property, my life, my money, because it was my house with my name on the deed, bought with my money, paid for with my work. I didn't need to ask anyone what to do with my own things. The lesson in independence I was giving them was better than any college course. Megan had stood still like a statue, holding the keys to a house that no longer belonged to me, planning to move to a property that now had new owners. And the new owners, do they know that we... She couldn't finish the sentence because the reality of the situation was hitting her like a truck. Oh yes, Mr. and Mrs. Harris are a very kind retired couple who moved from Maine. I explained to them that maybe some people would show up with old keys, believing I still live here. They told me they'd already changed all the locks, installed a security system. If anyone tries to enter without permission, it automatically alerts the authorities. The silence that followed was beautiful. For the first time in months, I was the one who had all the control, who knew exactly what was happening, who had planned every move while they believed they were manipulating me. But why was the only thing Joshua managed to whisper with a broken voice that broke my heart? Why didn't you tell me anything? Why did you sell the house without talking to me? For the first time in months, my son was really looking at me, not through Megan's eyes, but with his own eyes full of confusion and pain. Because you no longer listened to me. Joshua, I responded, feeling my voice catch. Because every time I told you what your girlfriend was doing to me, you accused me of being crazy, of being jealous, of resisting change. When was the last time you asked me how I felt? When was the last time you believed me when I said something was wrong? Megan's family had completely lost their arrogance. The father looked like an old, confused man. The mother kept looking around as if she expected it all to be a bad dream. And the brother had taken out his phone, probably calculating how much money they'd lost with the fall of their master plan. But Dad, Joshua insisted desperately, you could have told me. We could have talked. We could have found a solution. My son's naivety hurt me more than all of Megan's evil combined. after months of not listening to me. Now he wanted me to trust him, like the solution of handing over the keys to my house to your girlfriend without consulting me. I asked with a sadness that came from the depths of my soul, like the solution of planning my life without asking me what I wanted. Joshua, you had already chosen. You chose to believe her over me. Megan finally found her voice, but it no longer sounded like the confident, manipulative woman from before. Mr. Thompson, this is insane. You sold your house just to get revenge on us. Her incomprehension was total. She couldn't understand that an older man would take control of his own life. Revenge, I repeated with a laugh that had nothing funny about it. No, Megan, I saved myself. I saved myself from becoming your unpaid servant. I saved myself from having my home stolen. I saved myself from living as an intruder in my own house. Each word was like a slap to her. But where have you been living these 3 months? Joshua asked with a small voice, as if he were finally beginning to understand the magnitude of what he'd lost. Where have you been while I thought you were here in my new condo? I responded with a mixture of pride and sadness. A beautiful 2-bedroom place with a view of the harbor. Completely mine. Completely paid for. Completely at peace. I've been going to counseling with a therapist who helps me understand why I allowed myself to be treated like a doormat for so many years. Counseling, Joshua whispered, as if the word were a personal insult. Why do you need counseling? His question confirmed to me that he really didn't understand anything of what had happened, of how much harm he'd done me by choosing Megan over me. Because I needed to understand why I'd normalized my own son treating me as if I were invisible. I responded with an honesty that hurt but was necessary, because I needed to learn to value myself after a lifetime of putting you above my own dignity. Megan's father tried to regain some control over the situation. Sir, I understand you're upset, but this can't stay like this. We made plans based on the information given to us. Megan terminated her apartment lease. We canceled our weekend plans to help with the move. And what do you want me to do? I asked with a coldness that surprised me. Buy another house for you to move into. Sacrifice myself again to solve the problems you created by planning to rob me. Their silence was the only answer I needed. Megan had slumped in her chair, still holding those useless keys as if they were relics of a lost dream. I don't understand, she murmured repeatedly. I don't understand how you could do this. Her perfect world, where she was the star and I was the obstacle to be removed, had completely disappeared. I also didn't understand how you could plan to steal my house to my face. I responded without a hint of compassion. But unlike you, I took action to protect myself instead of crying because my evil plans didn't work. Joshua stood up from the table and walked to the window, turning his back to me. I can't believe you sold the house where I grew up. All my childhood memories are in this house. His pain was real, but it was also late and unfair. Your memories are in your heart, not in the walls, I said with the softest voice I could find. And this house where you grew up would be gutted by your girlfriend to turn it into something completely different. At least now it's in the hands of people who will care for it with love. And what's going to happen to me? Megan asked, with a voice that finally sounded vulnerable instead of manipulative. Where am I going to live? I already terminated my apartment lease. I already packed all my things. For the first time, she was experiencing the consequences of her own decisions. That's not my problem, I responded with a firmness that took me years to develop. You made decisions based on plans you made without consulting me. Now you have to deal with the consequences. The lesson in personal responsibility I was giving them was painful but necessary. Megan's mother finally found her voice. Mr. Thompson, maybe we could reach an agreement. My daughter really loves your son. We can't let a misunderstanding destroy that relationship. She was still trying to manipulate the situation, but she no longer had cards to play. There's no misunderstanding. I clarified with a patience I didn't feel. Your daughter tried to steal my house with my son's complicity. That's not love. It's abuse. And I'm no longer willing to be abused by anyone, not even my own family. The words came out harsher than I'd planned, but they were true. Joshua turned from the window with tears in his eyes. Dad, I didn't know you felt this way. I believed Megan really wanted to help you, that it was good for you to have company. His sincerity broke my heart, but it also confirmed to me how blind he'd been. And you never asked me what I wanted. I responded with a sadness I'd carried for months. You never asked me if I wanted that help, if I wanted that company. You decided what was good for me without asking me. Just like when you were a child and decided what gift I wanted for my birthday. The silence that followed was different. It was no longer hostile or manipulative. It was reflective, painful, real. For the first time, all the masks had fallen, and we were speaking with the truth, without theater, without acting. So, what's going to happen to us now? Joshua asked with a voice that reminded me of the little boy who used to ask me if we'd be okay after every crisis in life. For the first time in months, my son was talking to me as his father, not as an obstacle in his path to happiness. That depends on you. Joshua, I responded, feeling a gigantic weight lift from my chest. I've already made my decision. I rescued myself from a situation that was destroying me. Now you have to decide if you want a father in your life or if you prefer to continue with a woman who tried to steal everything I have. Megan stood up abruptly from her chair, throwing the keys on the table with a metallic noise that echoed throughout the room. This is ridiculous. Joshua, you can't let your father do this to us. Her true nature had come out completely. There were no more sweet masks, no subtle manipulation, just pure rage because her plan had failed. Do what exactly Joshua asked, turning to her with an expression I hadn't seen on his face the whole time they'd been together. Protect himself from us kicking him out of his own house. Refuse to become our free servant. For the first time, my son was seeing Megan without the rose-colored glasses of blind infatuation. We weren't going to kick him out. Megan shouted with that shrill voice she used when things didn't go her way. We were going to take care of him. We were going to give him a family. But her words sounded empty after everything that had come to light. Take care of him by forcing him to move to the smaller room in his own house, Joshua asked, with an incredulity that gave me hope that maybe my son wasn't completely lost. Giving him a family that included putting his property in debt to pay for our whims. Megan's family had started gathering their things in silence, finally understanding that their presence was no longer welcome. The father approached Joshua with that last desperation of someone who sees everything slipping from their hands. Young man, don't let a misunderstanding destroy your future. Megan is a good woman who loves you. Your father is confused. He probably needs medical help. He was still trying to paint the narrative where I was the crazy villain, and they were the misunderstood heroes. My father isn't confused. Joshua responded with a firmness I'd never heard him use to defend me. My father was smarter than all of us. While we were planning his life, he had planned his own. The pride I felt at that moment didn't compare to any other achievement I'd had in my entire existence. Megan turned to me with one last malicious desperation. And now, Mr. Thompson, Are you going to live alone forever? Are you going to die alone in that condo without family to visit you? She was trying to hurt me with my own fears, but she no longer had power over me. I prefer to be alone than accompanied by people who see me as an object to be exploited. I responded with a tranquility that surprised me. And I won't be alone. I have real friends. I have my therapist. I have neighbors who greet me because they like me, not because they want something from me. Real friends, Joshua asked with genuine curiosity, as if he'd just discovered that his father was a complete person outside of his role as unconditional provider. For years, he'd assumed I had no life of my own, that I existed solely to serve him. Yes, my dear son, I responded with a smile that felt different, freer. I have friends from work who care about me without wanting to steal anything from me. I have a neighbor, Tom, who invites me to watch games because he enjoys my company. There's a group of seniors who walk in the park and include me in their plans without hidden expectations. And is there room for me in this new life? Joshua asked, with a vulnerability he hadn't shown since he was a teenager. The question touched me right in the heart. But I knew I had to be honest with him and myself. That depends on you, I responded, weighing each word carefully. If you come into my life as my son who respects me, who consults me before making decisions about me, who treats me as a complete person, and not just as your father figure, then yes, there's room. But if you come expecting me to go back to being the man who sacrifices without limits for your happiness, then no. Megan took a step toward Joshua with that desperation of someone who feels they're losing everything they'd planned. Joshua, you can't choose your father over me. We have plans. We have a future together. We were supposed to get married. Her last card was emotional blackmail, manipulation disguised as romantic love. Megan, Joshua said with a voice that sounded years more mature than a few hours ago. I didn't know what you were doing to my father. I believed you really wanted to help him. But now I see that the only thing you wanted was to take everything he had. My son's awakening was painful to watch, but necessary. That's not true, Megan shouted with tears. I didn't know if they were from rage or genuine sadness. I love you. Everything I did was because I wanted us to have a better future. Your father is ruining our lives. To the end. She continued, being unable to accept responsibility for her actions. My father saved himself. Joshua responded with a clarity that filled me with hope. And maybe it's time for me to save myself, too. From a relationship where we lie and manipulate the people we love most to get what we think we need. Megan's family had finished gathering their things and was heading for the door. The mother turned one last time with that look of superiority she'd maintained all night. This won't stay like this. Mr. Thompson, you made us waste time and money with your deceptions. Your losses are a consequence of your own deceptions, I responded, opening the door wide. You planned to rob me, and I defended myself. If that makes you victims in your minds, then you haven't learned anything from this experience. The door closed behind them with a finality that freed me completely. Joshua and I were alone for the first time in months, looking at each other like two strangers who are learning to know each other again. Can I visit you in your new condo? He asked, with that shyness of someone who knows they've made big mistakes and isn't sure if they deserve forgiveness. You can, I responded, feeling my eyes fill with tears that this time were of hope. But with one condition, that you come because you want to know the man I am, not just the father I was, that you see me as Ray, a complete person with dreams, opinions, and limits of my own. I'd like that, he told me, hugging me for the first time in months. But this time it felt different. It wasn't the automatic hug of a son who takes his father's unconditional love for granted. It was the conscious hug of an adult who is learning to value the person who raised him. That night, when I finally got to my condo, I poured a glass of scotch and went out to the balcony to watch the lights of Boston shining over the city. For the first time in years, I didn't have to worry about anyone but myself. I didn't have to cook for someone who didn't appreciate it. I didn't have to clean up other people's messes. I didn't have to smile when they hurt me. At 68 years old, I'd learned the most important lesson of my life. That loving someone doesn't mean disappearing for them. That being a father doesn't mean being a martyr. That I deserve respect, consideration, and genuine love. Not just when I'm useful to others. And you who are listening to me tell this story. Have you let someone treat you as if you were invisible? Have you sacrificed your dignity, believing that's love? It's never too late to rescue yourself, to set boundaries, to demand the respect you deserve. Because at the end of the day, the only person who will always be with you is yourself. Take care of him, respect him, love him. He deserves it. 8 months after that night, that changed my life forever. I'm sitting on my balcony watching the sun rise over the city with a cup of coffee that tastes better than any other I've ever had in my life. Not because it's special coffee, but because it's mine. I bought it with my money, prepared it in my kitchen on my time for my enjoyment. How strange and wonderful it is to discover freedom at 68 years old. Joshua comes to visit me every Saturday. At first, our conversations were tense, full of uncomfortable silences and repetitive apologies. He didn't know how to talk to this new version of his father, and I didn't know how to be anything more than his unconditional provider. But little by little, Saturday after Saturday, we've been building a different relationship, more honest, more balanced, more real. He tells me about his work, his plans, his fears. I tell him about my counseling, my new friends, my little daily adventures. Last week, he confessed to me that he definitely ended things with Megan. I couldn't continue with someone who hurt the most important person in my life so much. He told me while we assembled a model car together in my small living room. Megan tried to contact him several times after that night. She sent desperate messages saying it had all been a misunderstanding, that she really loved me like a father, that I'd misinterpreted her intentions. But my son had awakened from that manipulative spell. Now I see everything she made me do. Dad, how she convinced me that you were the problem when the problem was not knowing how to value you. My therapist, Dr. Maria Chen, helped me understand that my whole life I'd confused love with extreme sacrifice. Ray, she told me in one of our sessions, you thought that the more you disappeared for others, the more they'd love you. But real love doesn't require a person to become invisible. Those words freed me from guilt I'd carried for decades. I made real friends for the first time in my adult life. Tom, my neighbor, has become my confidant and adventure partner. Together, we take photography classes on Wednesdays, go to the flea market on Sundays, and laugh like kids while sharing stories of our past and present lives. There's also Margaret, a 72-year-old lady I met at the park walking group. She's widowed, warm, and treats me as if I'm interesting and valuable for who I am, not for what I can do for her. I don't know if our friendship will turn into something more, but for the first time in decades, I'm open to the possibility of sharing my life with someone from a position of strength, not need. The condo has become my perfect sanctuary. It's compact but sunny, decorated exactly how I like it, full of succulents I care for with love and books I read without interruptions. I have photos of Joshua at all stages of his life, but I also have photos of myself on my recent outings with my new friends, smiling in ways I hadn't smiled in years. The house where Joshua grew up is now in the hands of the Harrises, who care for it with the same love I had for it for years. Sometimes I drive by the neighborhood and see the new garden they planted in the yard, the improvements they made with respect for the original design. It gives me peace knowing my old life is in good hands while I build my new existence. Financially, I'm better than ever. The money from the house sale, wisely invested with the help of a financial advisor, gives me a security I never had when I worked nonstop to maintain a property that was too big and costly. Now I can afford small luxuries, a monthly spa visit, dinners at nice restaurants with Tom, gifts for myself without guilt. The most important thing I learned is that it's never too late to rescue yourself. For decades, I believed my value depended on how much I could sacrifice for others, especially for my son. I thought being a father meant disappearing as an individual person. But now I understand that I can love Joshua deeply without losing myself in that love. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't had the courage to sell the house and move. I'd probably be right now scrubbing the floors Megan and Joshua would have dirtied in my home, cooking for people who don't thank me, paying for their updates with my savings, feeling like a stranger in my own life. Instead, I wake up every morning knowing the day is mine. I can decide what to do, where to go, who to spend time with, how to spend my money, how to use my energy. It's an intoxicating freedom that makes me want to live another 30 years to keep enjoying it. The other day, while organizing my photos, I found one I took the day I moved to this condo. My eyes are red from crying so much, but there's something in my expression that caught my attention. Determination. It was the face of a man who had decided to save himself, no matter how painful the process was. Now, 8 months later, I see that same determination transformed into serenity. I know who I am outside of my role as sacrificing father. I know what I want and what I'm not willing to tolerate. I know I deserve love, respect, and consideration, not as a prize for my sacrifices, but simply because I exist. If there's anyone listening to this story who feels invisible in their own life, who has normalized mistreatment disguised as love, who believes they have no options because it's too late to change, I want you to know this. It's never too late to rescue yourself. It's never too late to demand the respect you deserve. It's never too late to build a life that's truly yours. I did it at 68 years old, and it was the best decision I made in my entire existence. If you liked my story, you can support me by hitting the super thanks button. That way I can write many more stories like this. Thank you so much in advance. And you, what would you do in this person's place? I really want to know your opinion. So write here in the comments. I'm always curious to know what you think. Oh, and also tell me where you're watching this story from. If you want to hear more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to Revenge with Thomas. There are many others waiting for you. A big hug, and see you next.